Have you ever typed a website into your browser and wondered what really happens before the page appears? Behind that simple action, there's an entire high speed conversation happening across the internet. In this video, we'll walk through that process step by step so you'll understand exactly how a website loads into your browser from A to Z. It all starts when you open your browser and type a URL like example.com. A URL is basically an address. It tells your browser where to go and how to talk to that place. But computers don't understand names like example.com. They use numbers called IP addresses. So the browser first asks something called a DNS server to translate the domain name into an IP address. The DNS server replies with a number like 93.184.216.34, and now the browser knows exactly which machine to contact. Next, the browser opens a connection to that IP address. First, it sets a TCP connection, which is like building a reliable tunnel between your device and the server. Then, because we are on HTTPS, the browser and the server perform a TLS handshake to agree on encryption keys. This makes sure nobody can eavesdrop on what you're doing. Once the secure connection is set up, the browser sends an HTTP request. It's basically saying, "Hey server, send me the HTML for this page." This request includes things like which page you want, what browser you're using, and any cookies that identify you. On the server side, a lot can happen. Sometimes the server simply returns a static file, but often there's an entire application running, talking to databases, doing logic, and generating content dynamically. In the end, the server sends back an HTTP response that includes a status code, some headers, and the HTML of the page. The browser receives that HTML and the real work begins. It needs to turn that text into a web page with layout, colors, images, and interactivity. First, the browser parses the HTML from top to bottom as it reads tags like divs, headings, and paragraphs. It builds a tree structure called the DOM, the Document Object Model. This is a representation of every element on the page. While reading the HTML, the browser also finds links to other files: CSS for styles, JavaScript for behavior, images, fonts, and more. Each of those triggers additional HTTP requests to fetch those resources. When the CSS arrives, the browser parses it and builds the CSSOM, the CSS object model. Then it combines the DOM and the CSSOM into a render tree, which describes what should appear on the page and how it should look. Next comes layout. The browser calculates how big each element should be and where it should go based on the screen size and styling rules. This is also called reflow. After layout, the browser starts painting, drawing backgrounds, text, borders, images, and shadows, one layer at a time. Finally, it composites all those layers into the final picture you see on screen. But the page isn't done yet. Once the initial render is complete, the browser runs JavaScript. JavaScript can change the DOM, modify styles, fetch new data, and update parts of the page without a full reload. This is what makes modern websites interactive and smooth. To speed things up in the future, the browser caches resources like CSS, JavaScript, and images. So the next time you visit the page, it can load much faster because it doesn't need to download everything again. Of course, sometimes things go wrong. You might see a 404 when a page doesn't exist, or a 500 when the server crashes. These status codes help the browser understand What happened? So let's quickly recap the whole journey. You typed a URL, DNS finds the server's IP address, the browser opens a secure connection, it sends an HTTP request, the server generates and returns HTML, the browser builds the DOM, fetches resources, builds a render tree, performs layout, paints pixels, runs JavaScript, and caches assets. All of that just to show you a single page, and it happens in a fraction of a second. Now you know what really happens when a website loads in your browser. If you enjoyed this breakdown, hit like, subscribe, and let me know which part you'd like a deeper dive on. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.